Welcome back, everyone. So I wanted to give you a quick update on one big change in the house here. You can see this same room I showed you before from upstairs. And I decided the couch and chair are not going to stay here, but got the old arcade machines in this room upstairs here. I'm going to turn the light on. So, like I said, couch and chair are going to just kind of chill out here for right now until I get the living room together downstairs. But anyway, and this monitor is not going to stay here, but figured I'd go ahead and set it up so I could play some of my consoles and stuff up here, and just for the time being. So anyway, I got the old machines all set up, and everything's generally pretty good, and there's plenty of space in here. It's a little close with the couch right now. It's pretty much fine, but eventually I'm going to get like a little like a bench to put back here, so people can kind of hang out if they want and not necessarily have to play games. But at any rate, I don't know if you remember, but the marquee lights for all of these except for the blast were not working, so I got all those fixed up. The Arrow, in fact, did not have a marquee light on it, and I'm not sure. I don't think they actually come with them. And I'm going to switch hands real quick here and I'll show you. This one actually is touch activated, so it's got two brightnesses, and so that works out pretty good. And the Astro here, I finally got that one working. I had to put a whole new fixture in it. And the fixture was fine in the Net City, it's just the bulb was out. So just had to put a new bulb in it, and the blast, of course, was already okay. So I have a couple of other lighting ideas that I'll show you guys at some point when I get to that. But also, when I put the the new lights in, I had to put some looks a little weird right here on the camera. But anyway, I was just trying to fix the speakers up and sort of block the light out and get them, kind of a little more insulated so they'll sound a little better. Also put some new speakers in the Astro City, and that's what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. But anyway, these are just some Infinity car speakers that I had kind of laying around. Also, I put the foam around them. And basically, the foam that I used is the kind that comes when you when you want to seal off like a window unit air conditioner or something like that. So it works fine for this kind of application. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. There's a little bit of light coming around the speaker there, which is fine. But I also have I don't know if you remember when I did my Aero City speaker video a long time ago. If any of you guys saw that. I have this bazooka bass tube that I also hooked up to it, and I've decided that I'm going to move this bass tube over to the Astro once I get the amp installed, and then I've got a new bass tube that's a powered bass tube that I'm going to use for the Arrow. But I thought this time I would actually try to show you a little bit more about how everything is connected and that sort of thing. So let's take a look. Okay, so this is the Alpine KTP 445U, and this is the amplifier that I used in my last speaker change out there. And the reason I'm using it again is because it's a really versatile amplifier, and it works really well with everything. It's also very small, and it's fairly affordable as far as car amplifiers go. So this is what the actual unit looks like. You can see the size. It's really not too big. Has a couple of mounting options, and honestly the way I do it is I use the pull ties that come with it and just sort of strap it onto the monitor chassis and just let it hang out there. So there's that. You have a couple of plugs that go on either side. These are your inputs that go on one side. I'm not sure if you guys will be able to read that or not. Hopefully it'll focus. And it says front in and rear in. So you get your inputs in this way. Now it doesn't have to be a low-level RCA. It can also be a high-level speaker, which is what you're going to need for your arcade cab. And in that case, you just cut these tips off, and then you just connect the speaker outputs to these inputs here. This blue wire here is your remote trigger wire, And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that once we get to the power settings, but that is going to be something that's important. Now, depending on whether or not you want the RCA's low level or high level, you do need to sort of consult your dip switches back here. And if you take a close look there, you can see that everything's outlined on the unit itself, so you don't have to go dig the manual out or anything like that. But you can select your input, either the RCA or speaker. You can set it to 2-channel or 4-channel, and then you can get your high pass filter turned on or off for your front and rear speakers, and you'll do that depending if you have a subwoofer hooked up, you might want to have that turned on. So now your other side here, this one's going to be a few more things here. The majority of these are your speaker outputs. So these first 8 right here are going to be your speaker outputs, and I don't remember which one's which, but that you will need the manual for. But you can see you've got a green output. One will be a solid, one will have a black line through it, and it'll be that for every single one. So your black line is usually your negative, and your solids are positive. So just get your speakers hooked up through those lines there. This blue one, again, is a remote trigger. This is to go to another device from here. And then you've got your power and your ground leads. And those will go, in my case, to just this little cheap Radio Shack power supply. This is just a 12 volt, 1.5 amp power supply. And what you'll do is you don't have to buy any of the little connector things. You just cut the tip off of it, and you connect the positive side to the yellow wire, which is positive, negative to the negative. Now, you can also power this through your machine itself, because it is a 12 volt powered unit. So you can hook this up to the 12 volt line of your machine, although if you run more than one board at a time, I definitely wouldn't recommend hooking this up to your machine's power supply, and I'd look into it a little bit first, because every arcade machine's a little different. So you don't want to overload your power supply for your arcade machine. I'm not sure that it would do any damage to your boards, but at the very least it may or may not work. So just be a little careful with that. You can also use an ATX power supply like you would for a PC, and just hook up the 12 volt line again, the positive to the yellow one and the negative to the black one here, and you should be good. And if you're powering multiple things, you can use one ATX power supply, and that should be a nice way of doing it. Now, the other thing is, how do you turn this thing on and off? Does it come on with the machine or not? Well, that's what we have the remote trigger line for. And basically what happens is when current goes to this line, the unit turns on. So generally what I've done, what I did in the past and what I'm going to do this time, is that line will also connect to the positive end of my power supply. Now, I have all of my machines on a switchable surge protectors, so when I switch those on, everything turns on at one time, and that includes the speakers here. So that's the only thing, is if you're going to leave this plugged into something, to an outlet that's not switchable, then you may want to put a switch in there, and really all you have to do is just pick up a little switch or something at Radio Shack, put it between the power supply and the remote trigger, and then you can just switch it on and off that way. And that shouldn't be too hard to do. You can also send the remote trigger to the arcade machine. You could hook it up to maybe the 12 volt, or I think even the 5 volt should be fine for triggering this. So you could hook it up to your machine that way too, so that when the machine's on, then it triggers this. So anyway, that's up to you guys how you want to do that. So the other component here, other than our 2 speakers that are already going to be in the top of the machine, is this bazooka bass tube. So you can see this thing is pretty hefty, and sorry about the bad camera angle here, but at any rate, it usually just comes with the tube, and then you have these mounting straps. Now this is made to go in a car, and this is made for corner loading. So what you'll do if you're putting this in your house, don't put it in the machine, put it next to the machine. I usually mount the little mounting plates to just you know, some kind of spare piece of wood you got laying around, or you know, just a board or a shelf or something that it can just sort of sit on. I mean, I guess you could mount it to the floor too if you wanted, but you know, I didn't recommend that. I just want to go on record as saying. So anyway, this is the tube, and then it just sort of held on there like that. And you're going to want to put this next to your machine facing the wall, and the base actually will go into the wall. And like I said, it's corner loading, so you'll get quite a bit of response out of this. Now this particular one is a powered one. They also make unpowered ones. And if you get an unpowered one, then you just take your 2 speaker level input or outputs out of your amp, and you just hook them up, and that's it. I mean, there's just 4 terminals in the back. You hook them up, and you're done. If you want to do a powered one like this one, which will give you a little bit more, you know, a little more boom, then you're going to need a power adapter, and it looks more complicated, but honestly, it's not. You've got one plug that goes into the back of it here. This is a little auto turn on loop, so whenever it gets signal, it'll just automatically turn on. If you want to use a remote trigger, like we were talking about with the amp, where you know you run it to your machine or something like that, then you have to unplug this, and they have another wire for that. So at the other end of what looks like tons of mess here, which is really just one long piece of wire here, or bunch of wires, we have your power supply connectors. And I apologize, I know this looks like crap because I did it with electrical tape. I had some heat shrink, but none in the right size. I tried it, and of course it didn't shrink down small enough, so I had to use electrical tape. But at any rate, you know, it's they're soldered together under there. Be sure when you're connecting your power adapter to put some solder on the wires once you get them twisted together, because that'll make things a lot easier. So anyway, you got your positive, negative. Again, this is the same 12 volt 1.5 amp power supply, same as the other one. And then what you're left with, now you don't get bare wires in the beginning. Let me show you. I guess I can show you this. You get this little plug which works for some systems, and I think they have a couple of adapter plugs and stuff for car stereos. You can just plug this in. But at any rate, other than the power wires, you get 2 more sets here. The white and the gray again, 2 with black lines and 2 solid, and those are going to be your 2 speaker outputs. And it doesn't matter which one goes where, because you know, if you're hooking this up to a JAMA cab, it's going to be mono anyway, so it's all 4 signals are going to be the same thing. So yeah, so you just get those connected up and you're pretty much good to go. So let's see how it turns out. Okay, so I got a little bit of mess back here, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on the wiring situation. Now, one of the problems that I had when I was putting all this together and trying to figure this out is that, if I can get this out of here, the connector for this guy is completely wrapped. And so they tell you what wire is what here and what color it should be. And unfortunately, the colors are not correct. There are in fact quite a few colors that you don't even have. So I was trying to figure that out, and I thought that I had it figured out correctly, but I did not. So if I get that plug back in. So anyway, the correct way to do it, the speakers I had right. The gray, the 2 gray and the 2 white are going to be your speakers, and that's pretty obvious if you have 4 wires. You're just going to pick your 2 colors there. And the power was the problem. And the funny thing is, the 2 wires that were left on that one connector actually both need to go into the positive end of your power supply, the red one and this blue one with the line in it. And it's funny, this blue one is obviously the remote trigger line, so that's the reason those need to be wrapped together. And it's the same color as the Alpine, even though they're made by different companies. So at any rate, you need to do that. Then the negative end of your, and I'm obviously gonna not leave that exposed, but the negative end of your power supply actually goes to this ground over here. which I didn't even notice when I was getting this thing out. So anyway, and obviously I'm not just going to leave that like that. I'm going to cut this off and properly splice the wires together. I just wanted to show you guys, since I just figured that out, that I am an idiot. So let's finish the old installation and see what we got. Okay, so I want to give you guys a quick look in the back of the old Astro here. And I apologize, I know this video is like really disorganized. You think after a couple of years I'd be better at doing this, but at any rate, so these are the infinity speakers I was talking about. And you can see where I've used the insulation that you normally use to seal off an air conditioner to seal around the edges there. It's a bit of a mess right now. I'm going to sort of secure all this stuff. I just want to show you how everything works here. So your speaker connections go to your speakers just like that. And I don't know if I specifically mentioned or not when you're doing your inputs that you just use the front ones. You don't have to use the rear ones, and just turn on to 2-channel. And you just use the speaker connectors that come out of the cabinet. And again, you can use a 2-channel amp if you want to just use the 2 speakers that are in it already. And honestly, that'll make it sound a lot better. Those of you guys who have Astro Cities or have experience with them know that generally the speakers are really underpowered and sound really rough. I mean, they just have this really awful sound. There's also the light bar that I installed in here. That is fixed. So yeah, I'm going to get all this stuff kind of strapped in here and get my power cord coming out of it and my subwoofer cables, and everything should be good to go.